Hello, my name is Clayton Boren, and I will be discussing with you students with gifts and talents and how to gauge their level of engagement. I am interested in this topic. I was a student with gifts and talents myself, so I have devised an action research project to help these students and to help teachers devise some strategies that they can implement into their classrooms in order to make these students more engaged. In 1975, Congress passed Public Law 94142. It guarantees that all handicapped children have the right to a free, appropriate public education. It was seen as a major win by civil rights activists, but it fails to mention education of students who are gifted and talented. It specifically mentions students with handicaps. In 2014, the National Association for Gifted Children published a State of the Nation in which the claim is made: laws, policies, and funding to support the nation's highest achieving and high potential pre-kinder to 12 students continue to vary sharply between states, with only a fraction of states meeting their obligations to students. The previous statement speaks to a lack of teaching resources and support for students with gifts and talents. The National Association for Gifted Children also mentioned in their State of the States, 19 states do not monitor or audit local gifted programs, 22 do not require districts to submit gifted education plans, and only 11 states produce an annual report on gifted education services in the states. Teachers oftentimes feel as if they are unprepared professionally to help students with gifts and talents. This is true even in the Finnish school system, which is seen as by many as one of the leading educational systems worldwide. This is from a study by Lane, Elina, and Kusisto from 2016. There are some basic strategies you can use to help engage students in class. Most of them require extra time on part of the teacher, administrator, or special education coordinator, and some are free. Some of the best ways to support these students would be developing relationships with local community colleges or institutions of higher education to help form some sort of advanced placement or dual credit program. Another option would be some sort of one-on-one education with a special education worker. Other recommendations to help teachers come from Bauer, Binkstein, Pitzel, and Corey. The authors compiled a list of useful tips for teachers who are challenged with the task of reaching and teaching students with gifts and talents. The tips 3 through 5 on this list are interesting because they discuss the curriculum specifically and how teachers can amend the curriculum to make it more inductive for learning. These tips include things such as using project-based learning, making the curriculum flexible and student-centered, which is just another way of saying this curriculum needs to include some form of inquiry. These tips come in handy specifically for West Hill Institute because they run an international baccalaureate curriculum focusing on project-based learning as well as inquiry. The IB curriculum makes the teacher's job to be as a facilitator, not as a dictator. The next portion of my video will discuss the methodology of the actual action research study I am proposing. The theoretical framework will be studying the level of engagement of students with gifts and talents in the classroom. I will be discussing this because I believe it is the best first step to engage students with gifts and talents in your classroom. The demographics of West Hill is the school is 1,300 children. The demographics of the whole school are: first, the school is an international IB school in Mexico City, and it contains 60% Mexican children, 27% American, 7% from various Asian countries, and 6% from various South American countries. The class I will be studying is a third grade class when they move into fourth grade. The class is a total of 30 students between two separate classes, and the demographics of this class are listed on the screen as well. The new fourth grade class will be 57% Mexican, 19% American, 17% various other countries, and 7% various Asian countries. After doing some research, I decided to use the Texas State Identification Program for students with gifts and talents. I chose this because it most closely relates to the Special Education Department of West Hill and our abilities to identify gifted and talented students. I've made some specific modifications, which I will not discuss because the identification process can be quite complicated and lengthy. However, the section I will use and have amended is the compliance section, which you will see a small portion of on the screen in front of you. After speaking with my colleague about his students and receiving his recommendations on which students he considers gifted and talented, I have identified 4 students out of the population of 30 third graders who will become fourth graders, whom I expect to be identified as gifted and talented after going through the Texas State Gifted and Talented Identification Program. The students will be placed into 2 areas, either STEM gifted or humanities gifted. The students are Alejandro. He is Mexican. He will be age 9 throughout the course of the study and is STEM gifted. Maria Jose is also Mexican. She is age 9 and she will turn 10 as the study continues. She is humanities gifted. Aribel is a Mexican-American student holding both citizenships. She is 8 years old, turning 9 shortly after the study begins. She is humanities gifted. The final student is Carlos, a Korean student who will be aged 9 throughout the course of the study, and he is STEM gifted. The study will take place over the course of 3 bimesters or units of study. There are 5 in a year, so this will be taking 3/5 of a school year to complete. The study will be split into 3 bimesters. With the first bimester, the students will be unsupported in the classroom, and the teacher will be instructed to teach all of their lessons as normal. The second bimester will include my first strategy, which will be using a one-on-one pull-out method with the school's dedicated special education at-risk and gifted student coordinator. These will be one-on-one lessons twice a week where the students are working with the school's coordinator. The lessons will focus on the students' highest identified subjects, either STEM or humanities, and they will do some critical thinking work and in-depth work together. The third bimester, where I will use my second strategy, the students will be split into groups. Because each class is going to have 15 students, each class will be split into a group of 7 and a group of 8. The gifted students will then be told to lead their group discussions, facilitate, and introduce new information to their group over the course of the lesson. This will also take place twice a week. Student engagement level will be based on a rubric by the man named Philip Schlechtley, who identified these traits for engaged students in a classroom. Students will be graded on this rubric twice a week throughout the course of each bimester, trying to find an average as to where they fall on this rubric using each separate method. The second form of measuring student engagement will be a qualitative interview conducted by myself. I have done research and found 2 student engagement interviews, one from the University of Indiana, the other from the National Survey of Student Engagement. They are both Likert scale-based interviews for student engagement. I have taken both of them, combined them, and amended the questions to make this into a qualitative interview, which I will conduct at the end of each bimester with all 4 of the gifted students. I will then take their answers and look at them over the course of each bimester and see if there are any significant changes or differences depending on the strategy the teacher employed. Once I've had a chance to look over all of these students' qualitative data based on the Philip Schlechtley rubric and the qualitative interview questions, I expect to see the following results over the course of 3 bimesters. The first bimester, which is unsupported, I will expect these students to be unengaged or only using intrinsic motivation to complete their work. They should fall on the lower end of the rubric, and the answers will reflect disinterest in the teaching. During bimester 2, I expect their interest to increase much along with their engagement as they will be working in a one-on-one environment. During the third bimester, I expect student engagement to increase yet again as they will enjoy being back in a classroom with their classmates full time. This will also cause extrinsic motivation as they will be able to peer teach, and this will create a more student-centered curriculum. Overall, I expect student engagement to increase with both of these strategies I've implemented, with only the one-on-one strategy having a drawback of students possibly being bored working with the professional after several weeks.